Hello, everyone. It's the middle of November, Armistice Day, in fact, and I realise that I've been away out of the parish quite a lot. I won't say off work, because a lot of my travel has very definitely been to do with ministry and particularly with ministry development. But I just wanted to reflect for a moment, partly for my own benefit, but also partly because I am well aware that as a parish, as a community, you've invested a lot in me and been very generous towards me, allowing me to have the time to go away on various trips, conferences, to think about ministry development in particular. Lots of the courses I've been on have all these funny acronyms, SLDP, they've all got program in the name or something like that, but they're all about developing ministry leadership skills within the Church of England. Now, I am well aware that leadership in the Church of England is not uncontroversial at the moment, particularly for those in the pews, as it were. Not that Mary's Haverhill has pews anymore. But I think for a lot of people, there's some anxiety about what it means to be Anglican at the moment, what it means when we see big decisions being taken, either through the House of Bishops alone, or through the instruments of the Anglican Communion, or through General Synod. Lots of decisions being taken, and we're not always sure how they relate to us, how they relate to those worshipping day by day, week by week, in and around the parish churches of this country in particular, but the whole Anglican communion worldwide. So I don't want you to think that I've been away to be indoctrinated or given the latest Church of England initiative that I'm going to roll out to the people of Haverhill and Withersfield. But I have been away to learn alongside others what it means to be a leader, a local leader, and someone with perhaps more responsibility within the national church, or the potential to have more responsibility within the national church. What that means as a priest, as a Christian leader today. The first of my trips away, though, if we go right back to the beginning of September, was nothing explicitly to do with the Church of England at all. It was an opportunity to travel with alumni of the Faith in Leadership programme to Northern Ireland to spend 3 days, 3 days of study in Belfast and Londonderry. And my reflections on that really were, as a faith leader in the community, what is our role in bridge building, reconciliation, in community cohesion, in allowing communities to tell their story, but to do so in a generous and hospitable way, allowing others to tell different stories alongside them. And that's what we see in Northern Ireland, different communities trying to tell their versions of the same story alongside each other. And one of the biggest things that we noticed as a group of faith leaders, Christians, Muslims, Jews, Hindus in Northern Ireland, was the absence of the faith story. And that might just be because of the particular people that we met and the opportunities we had, but we didn't actually meet with many faith leaders, people who had faith, certainly, but nobody, no clergy, nobody with a distinct community role from a faith organisation. And I wonder if some of that is because the conflict in Northern Ireland was very much about Protestants and Catholics, but those words were taken away from faith communities and took on a new identity. I personally struggled with the visit being labelled as a Protestant. It's not a word that I feel I identify with in my own spirituality, in my own religious perspective. I don't feel as though Protestant is a word that describes me. In the Anglican Church, we continued with many of the markers of Catholicity. We continued to have bishops, we continued to have territorial parishes, we continued to affirm the Nicene and Apostles' Creed, lots of ways in which our Catholicity remained. We're reformed for certain, and that's an important part of our identity. But Protestant? I'm not sure how I feel about that word. But in Northern Ireland, I was very definitely a Protestant. That was the only category that I could be fitted into. But those words, Protestant and Catholic, I think has been taken away from the faith community to take on a new identity of social and political persuasions, which in some ways have very little to do with their religious roots. So I think in terms of disruptive strategy, that was perhaps the disruptive moment at the beginning of this season of development programs. The unsettling moment to say, who are we as Christians, as faith leaders, as Anglicans in a modern world? How do we define and identify ourselves when many of the words that we use to describe ourselves either are not understood in the modern world or have been taken away from us and taken on new descriptions? So after Belfast, I suppose the next of the conferences that I was able to go on, again, was not explicitly to do with leadership development. This was the 2-day conference on young vocations in the Christian Conference Centre in Derby. Now, this was an opportunity to think about how we enable young people not just to grow as disciples or as Christians, but actually to realise their vocation. And I think this does fit into the bigger picture because growing younger is one of the key strategic areas of development for the Church of England at the moment, and it's one that in Haverhill we've been asked to look at particularly as we think about what to do with some of the funding, strategic development funding that we've been offered in Haverhill. So this was an opportunity then to say, well, actually, if leadership is about our local context and about some of the support that the National Church can offer, how do those things come together in a way that will serve the community and the congregations in Haverhill and Withersfield? So this was an opportunity to reflect on the fact that growing younger is important, but how does that work as a congregation, as a worshipping community in St Mary's Haverhill and St Mary's Withersfield? How do we respond to those invitations from National Church and from the opportunities that we see locally? How do we bring those together to produce something that is going to serve God and his people? And I think that, in many ways, is what leadership is about. So if we go back to Northern Ireland, what does it mean to be a faith leader? It's about looking at what's going on in the wider world, in our wider faith communities, and what's going on locally, and how do we enable those things to come together in a productive and fruitful way. After the Young Vocations Conference, I had the opportunity to go on the first module of the Church of England's Strategic Leadership Development Programme. And this is the one that lots of people have had the opportunity to go on. Many people who do show potential to serve the Church in higher offices, but many others who are just there to develop their own leadership in the way that I've just described as a way of bringing together local need and national support. And that module was it was the first module of a 2.5-3 year program. It was really an opportunity to get to know one another, to see who else was there in the cohort. You're looking at about 40 people brought together in York, in a place of pilgrimage and spirituality, the seat of the Archbishop of York, a place where thinking about leadership was definitely facilitated and fruitful. So again, that was an opportunity to bring everything into focus. Really, some of that course will be about leadership tools, about learning different strategies and resources, many of which come from the secular world, but now very definitely applied in context. Leadership doesn't happen in a vacuum. Ministry doesn't happen in a vacuum. We are Christians. First and foremost, I'm baptized as a Christian, confirmed as a disciple, ordained as a deacon to serve, and then as a priest to lead and to watch. So I think all those things come into play when we're thinking about ministry and leadership in particular. So that's why it's actually been really good to have this whole season of programming as it's worked out, to really think about what I can do, who I can be for you, the people of Haverhill and Withersfield, and for the wider church as well. So it was a really helpful opportunity, this first module in York, to really think about what we mean by leadership in the Church of England. It doesn't mean everybody in the Church of England conforming to the latest initiative sent to us by the Church Commissioners or the House of Bishops or whoever. It's about realising what our national vision of church and of being disciples of Christ looks like at a local level. And I think that's what I took away from that first module, at least. I went straight from York, turned things around here in Haverhill, and then we left for the United States of America, an opportunity to have some time away. It was 10 days holiday, vacation, as they'd say in the States. But it was there was also an element of ministry development in that. As you know, I went to Trinity Episcopal Church in Haverhill, Massachusetts, and was made very welcome there. And one person's comment there, I think, was really quite instructive. She said, a retired priest. She said, a lot of these official visits can be a little bit. I think stuffy might have been the word she used, but you have this official engagement and you might exchange gifts and words and things, but that's not the sort of visit I was on. There was nothing official about it. It was just me and the Reverend Jack Clark, the priest in charge in Haverhill, Massachusetts. We'd connected about a year ago. I invited myself to the Episcopal Church, and they very graciously and generously welcomed us as part of their congregation to preach, to preside, to share fellowship. A really wonderful opportunity to create new relationships, new friendships in a place that we have this shared history. I really hope I get a chance to speak more about that visit at another time, and perhaps I'll record another video about it. But I will certainly be able to share some of my reflections from Haverhill, Massachusetts. But the whole trip, in terms of ministry and leadership development, the whole trip was an opportunity to think about what we mean by colonialism, empire, what we mean by the Anglican Communion, what that period of history says to us today. And there's been a lot of thinking about this, and I preached about this at Haverhill, about what it means to be Anglican, to be at the heart, the home, perhaps, of the Anglican Communion, but in a place that has a very difficult relationship with many of the places that it has sent people out to in the past. Difficult relationships with those who've experienced slavery and servitude, difficult experiences with indigenous populations, difficult experiences with those who have fractured relationships with England, with Britain. So, and to some extent, this ties back to Northern Ireland, which is very much the first place of colonialism in the history of the British Empire. So this was one other thing I wanted to pick out from my journeys in New England. We spent time in Massachusetts, in Connecticut, and in New York. And there's just one thing I wanted to pick out that really stuck with me, was wandering around Hartford, Connecticut, and going to a museum at the Courts of Justice in Hertford, a local history museum, where they have still in a sealed display cabinet in the back of this great ornate hall, the first constitution which gave the people of Connecticut then the freedom to govern themselves. And it's very much seen as the very first moment of freedom, understood in a very American way. That first act of granting freedom to the American people, and that was issued by King Charles in 1662. Now, something else happened in 1662. The Book of Common Prayer was authorised. And that date just stuck with me. I think in the Church of England, in English culture generally, but certainly in the Church of England, we do have this slight air of superiority, that we've been around longer, we were the first, we were the ones to gift this form of religious organisation to others. But just to think about that, to think that in 1662, both the prayer book that became the basis for Anglican worship for the next 400 years, and this constitution which enabled the people of Connecticut to govern themselves, were issued in the same year. Now, they were both the product of a long period of discussion and development. They weren't the first iterations of either document, but they were both authorised in that same year, and in their own ways have really influenced the culture of the organisations which have grown out of them, the United States of America or the Anglican Church. And to think about those two histories working themselves out within the same time frame, I think was a really interesting reorientation for me. Just to see that and think about that. And therefore, what does leadership in the Anglican Church mean? Well, it does mean taking seriously our global, worldwide networks and relationships, and seeing each other as equal, not just because of the length of our history, but the spiritual importance of our place in the world. Just to remind ourselves of that this is important, that as a Christian leader here in this corner of England, in Haverhill, that we do actually have an effect through the relationships, the friendships, and the influences that we have right across the world. And I know there are some who will watch this video from right around the world. There are some who join in with our worship week by week from right around the world. And that, I think, is a really good thing to remind ourselves of the love of God, which encompasses the world. And in this kingdom season, that's certainly one image that we hold close to us. And then I came back from the States, and the very final bit of this season of development was 2 days, an overnight in Woodbridge within our own diocese, finishing off the ministry development programme that I've been invited to start at the beginning of the year within the diocese. So this was an opportunity then to reconnect with peers from across the diocese, others in an incumbent's role, although very different roles around the diocese, just to reflect with them. And I think, having been through all those other different programmes and conferences and courses, then to reconnect with the people alongside whom we minister most regularly, others in the diocese, and to say, actually, we do all have a role to play as leaders, and to support and encourage one another. And there was nothing competitive about the Suffolk Ministry Development Programme. There was nothing There really didn't feel like there was anything being put upon us that we would have to grow churches in our influence in the world, in growing younger, growing deeper in our faith, and growing in number. Those are all important priorities for the diocese and our strategic ministry development. But there was no pressure. There really was a sense that we are opening ourselves out to God, who calls us as leaders of his flock, as shepherds of his people. And if he wants his churches to grow, then he will give us the tools and resources to enable that to happen here in this place, in this corner of Haverhill, in this corner of Suffolk, in Haverhill and in Withersfield. Even though we might feel on the edge, even though we might feel slightly left out of things, God will make things happen. God will enable us to grow here if we open ourselves up to him and take seriously that call to be leaders. As a leader myself, enabling others to lead as well. And of course, that was all realised, I think, when the bishop came for confirmations and to license the Reverend Wendy Norris as an associate priest, that we had a record number of candidates, that we had a wonderful service that's responded to this invitation to grow younger, that has tried to be inclusive, has tried to draw people together. And I think that service for All Saints on the 5th of November did do that. And it was a really wonderful occasion. And I caught myself getting emotional at times just because of the people that it had brought together and the love of God that it was celebrating. We are all called to be saints, leadership in holiness. Perhaps that's a good definition for a saint. And we're all called to that. So this has been a season of development, and I thank you for allowing me to do that, and for listening to this reflection as to how it might have affected me and how it might affect you as people whom I lead here in Haverhill and Withersfield, because you will be changed by my experience as I am changed by yours. So thank you for your generosity in supporting and encouraging me. I look forward to the rest of these strategic leadership development programme from the Church of England in particular. So there's another 2.5 years of that to run and to see where that takes us. But thank you and God bless.